Have you ever noticed that the people who are just working the absolute hardest for their big dream are often the most completely and utterly miserable people in the room?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Right. I mean, you know the type. They're constantly grinding. They have this massive master plan. They're always busy. But underneath all that hustle, there is this profound, heavy exhaustion.
It's palpable. You can just feel it radiating off them.
Exactly. And, if you're sitting there without some grand, world-changing vision for your own future, you look at them and think, well, I must be failing at life.
Right, because it's a very specific, very modern kind of exhaustion, I think. We are just completely surrounded by these glittering, idealized images of success. And there's this implicit cultural expectation that you should always be striving for something massive.
Like, if you aren't scaling a mountain, you're supposedly just wasting your potential.
Exactly. That's the baseline assumption.
Right. Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring some incredible source material, just some really profound insights on self-analysis, the art of graduating from the expectations of other people, and figuring out what you, the person listening to this right now, genuinely want out of life.
It's such an important topic.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Because diving into these ideas feels like a much-needed antidote to the crushing societal expectations and, honestly, the constant information overload we all navigate every single day.
I totally agree. And the central argument we're looking at today suggests that in modern society, dreaming is essentially treated like a national duty.
A duty? Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a famous historical phrase baked into our culture from childhood, which is, boys, be ambitious.
Right, I've heard that.
Yeah, the sentiment is that having a big dream is a moral imperative.
Mm-hmm.
But that immediately raises a critical question, and it's perhaps the most important question of all.
Which is?
Is the dream you are currently chasing actually yours? Or is it a borrowed dream?
A borrowed dream. I mean, that's...
Like something carefully curated by your parents or your teachers or, the algorithm feeding you content on your phone.
A borrowed dream. I love that phrasing, even if it is, a little terrifying to confront. So let's get into the mechanics of this. How do you actually know?
Right. How do you diagnose it?
Yeah, how do you figure out if the goal you are working so hard for is authentic or if you're just acting out a script someone else handed to you?
Well, there is a very simple but incredibly cutting litmus test for this from the source text.
Okay, I'm ready.
I want you to imagine that you have just achieved your ultimate dream. You've crossed the finish line, the confetti is falling, the champagne is popped.
Sounds great so far.
Right. Now ask yourself, who is the happiest person in that moment?
Oh, wow. That is a dangerous question to ask yourself.
It reveals everything. I mean, if your immediate visceral answer is your mother or your father, your spouse, or maybe an imagined audience of peers you desperately want to impress,
You're in trouble.
you need to hit the pause button.
Yeah.
If the answer is someone else, you are carrying a borrowed dream.
Thinking about this, it's kind of like wearing a beautifully tailored, incredibly heavy winter coat that actually belongs to someone else.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You put it on, and everyone around you points and says, oh, wow, that coat is stunning. You look so successful, so professional.
Right, the external validation.
Exactly. But inside the coat, you are just suffocating. It doesn't fit your shoulders, you can barely move your arms, and you're sweating to death, but you just keep wearing it because everyone else likes looking at it.
That analogy captures the physical sensation of it perfectly. And the text points out there are specific observable symptoms of walking around in that heavy coat.
Like what?
Well, when you are chasing a borrowed dream, your primary driving force is a sense of duty.
Ah, right.
The internal monologue is always, I must do this, I have to achieve this. You are operating purely on obligation.
Which explains why it's so incredibly exhausting. But let's dig into the why here. Why does our brain react so negatively to a borrowed dream, even if it's objectively a good goal, like becoming a doctor or a lawyer?
It comes down to cognitive dissonance. Your conscious mind is telling you, I want this, but your subconscious knows it's a performance for someone else.
The brain knows you're faking it.
Exactly. And because it's an obligation, your subconscious actively fights back. This manifests as chronic procrastination, but specifically by doing small, meaningless errands.
Oh, no. You mean
You sit down to work on your grand dream, and suddenly you feel an overwhelming, urgent need to clean out your inbox, organize your desk drawer, or, vacuum the living room.
Oh, the productive procrastination. I know it entirely too well.
We all do. I mean, the mechanism behind it is fascinating. The brain actually prefers the authentic completion of a small task, like a clean desk, over the stressful fake performance required by the borrowed dream.
That makes so much sense.
Right. The borrowed dream triggers a stress response because your brain knows you are acting. Additionally, you worry constantly about the eyes of others, like how you are being perceived.
Right.
And if someone asks you about your future, you give these vague, rehearsed answers. You sound like a PR spokesperson for your own life.
Right, because you're just reciting the specs of the code. It's not really yours to explain. But let's contrast this with what an authentic dream actually feels like. Because when it's true to you, the physiological and psychological symptoms completely flip, don't they?
They do, entirely. You are no longer operating out of obligation. You are operating out of pure curiosity and joy.
I think of it like a computer's processing power.
Okay, how so?
When you're chasing a borrowed dream, it's like running a massive, heavy video rendering software in the background of your computer. You don't realize it's running, but it's draining your battery and causing your whole system to lag.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
You feel physical fatigue because of the friction, but with an authentic dream, that background software is just closed. You lose track of time. You don't feel that same draining physical fatigue because you are in a flow state.
And the social aspect flips entirely, too. The source notes that when someone asks you about an authentic pursuit, you don't give a vague PR statement.
You probably can't shut up about it
Right. You naturally start explaining it in your own words. You get animated. And most importantly, you don't care if the person asking is evaluating you or judging you.
because it just doesn't matter to you.
Exactly. Their approval is completely irrelevant because the pursuit generates its own internal fuel.
I have to push back a little here, though,
Sure.
because if it's this obvious, if the friction is so clear and the flow state is so distinct, why do we get tricked into wearing the heavy coat in the first place? I mean, nobody intentionally chooses misery.
That's very true.
If I just want to be rich so I don't have to worry about paying my rent, is that a borrowed dream? It sounds like basic practicality to me.
That is a crucial distinction. And it brings up the danger of what the text calls labels. We often get tricked because we confuse the label with the underlying desire.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Take your example, I want to be rich. Society treats rich as a shiny, universally understood label. It's plastered everywhere as the ultimate goal. But we have to look under the label to find the actual mechanism of desire.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Okay, so if we peel back the rich label, what are we usually looking at?
Well, for the vast majority of people, wanting to be rich usually masks a true desire for freedom.
Freedom, not necessarily the money itself.
Right. Specifically, the autonomy to not do work you absolutely hate and to not wake up to an alarm clock you resent every single morning. It's a desire for peace of mind and control over your own time.
So the wealth is just the vehicle, not the destination.
Exactly. Consider this hypothetical. What if you could work very short hours, do something you find mildly engaging or even just tolerable, and have a completely stable, comfortable, peaceful life? You have enough for your needs, you have your evenings free, and you have zero financial anxiety. If you had that exact life, does the desperate need for massive billionaire-level wealth disappear?
I mean, for most people, yeah, it totally disappears. Because the goal was never actually the private jets or the luxury yachts. The goal was the autonomy.
Right. We grab onto the label of rich because society tells us that massive wealth is the only acceptable way to buy freedom. But there are 100 different ways to build a life with short hours and peace of mind that don't require you to sacrifice your youth to become a Wall Street tycoon.
Okay, so if rich is just a mask for freedom, what about fame? We see people killing themselves to go viral or to become famous actors. Is that just a mask too? Because the drive for that seems incredibly deep-seated.
It is deep-seated, and it's a perfect second example from the text. Let's look at the dream of becoming a national actress or a massive celebrity.
Right.
Society might judge that as a shallow dream, or they might praise it as high ambition, depending on who you ask. But if we peel back the label of celebrity, what is underneath?
Attention.
Usually it stems from a deeply human, entirely valid desire for approval and connection.
The desire to be seen.
Yes. A way to be recognized, to feel understood by a community, and often a way to give back to your family by tangibly showing them you've made it.
That makes a lot of sense.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be seen and appreciated. But the mechanism of how we get there has changed. Do you actually need to be chosen by a Hollywood casting director to get that feeling of connection?
No, not anymore. And that's the massive paradigm shift of the internet, Ro.
Precisely. Today, The internet allows anyone to actively broadcast their thoughts, their art, or just their quirky personality to the entire world.
Right, without waiting for permission.
You can build a community and find that profound connection and approval without a gatekeeper.
This shifts the entire dynamic from a passive state to an active state. You don't have to stand in a line waiting for an audition, waiting for someone to hand you the label of actress. You can just build your own stage. The label isn't the point. The feeling of connection is the point.
And this is why decoupling your identity from these grand labels is so vital for mental health.
Yeah.
When you tie your entire self-worth to a label like billionaire or famous actress, you just set yourself up for existential despair.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get that specific job title, which is often subject to luck and timing, by the way, you feel like your whole life is a failure.
Right. But if your goal is the underlying desire, like I want to feel free or I want to connect with people, there are endless adaptable paths to get there.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we discard the heavy coat and we peel away these grand, shiny labels, what is actually left? I mean, if I stop trying to be a billionaire or a celebrity, aren't I just lowering my expectations? I have to ask, does this border on romanticizing mediocrity? Are we just giving up because the big dream is too hard?
I'm glad you asked that because it is the exact opposite of mediocrity.
Okay, so,
Mediocrity is blindly copying someone else's definition of success. What we are talking about here is radical specificity. It is about transitioning away from macro grand illusions and finding profound joy in the microscopic details of daily life.
a microscopic
The
detail.
source material calls this building your small sanctuary.
The small sanctuary, explain what that looks like in practice. Give me an example.
Well, it looks like hyper-specific, entirely personal joy. For example, the text mentions someone who might find their supreme richness in life by scouring for and meticulously maintaining Showa-era retro goods.
Okay, like hunting down vintage Japanese items from the 1970s, cleaning them up and displaying them.
Exactly. It completely defies market logic. It isn't a side hustle. It isn't going to make them famous, but it is intensely tactile and deeply personal.
Right.
Or someone else whose ultimate piece is simply sitting in their usual specific seat at their favorite local cafe, just drinking a very specific cup of coffee.
Okay, but how does sitting in a cafe equal self-actualization? I mean, that sounds nice, but...
Because protecting these tiny joys, without caring for a single second if they seem trivial to society, builds incredible psychological resilience.
Okay.
It is a sanctuary because market forces cannot take it away from you. A recession can cost you a CEO title, but it cannot take away the profound contentment you feel restoring that vintage radio.
Oh, wow. I see.
Right. When you decouple your happiness from volatile external achievements, you create an unshakable foundation.
Yeah.
The person who knows exactly what kind of coffee they like and exactly where they like to sit to drink it has achieved a level of self-knowledge that many highly successful, miserable people never reach.
That is a really powerful way to look at it because they've successfully tuned out the noise. They know what actually moves the needle for their own internal joy.
Exactly.
But this leads to the hardest part. Let's say I'm a listener who has spent the last 2 decades trying to please my parents or trying to construct the perfect, flawless LinkedIn profile. I don't even know what my small sanctuary is anymore.
Right, you've lost touch with it.
Yeah. How do I actually start building it? How do I break out of this axis of other people's expectations?
You start by bypassing your conscious mind entirely. The text suggests auditing your unconscious.
Auditing the unconscious. Okay, how do we do that without needing a degree in psychoanalysis?
By looking at your data.
My data.
Yeah, do not look at what you think you want. Your conscious thoughts have been compromised by decades of societal expectations. Instead, look purely at your past behavior. Where did you spend your time and your money completely unprompted?
Right, because your aspirational Google searches are things like how to learn Mandarin or best books on leadership.
Yeah.
But your actual browser history at 11:00 p.m. is like a 3-hour deep dive into the lore of Lord of the Rings or how to restore a vintage watch.
Exactly. Your credit card statements and your YouTube watch history do not lie.
Yeah.
What did you research for hours without anyone asking you to? What bizarre hobbies did you pursue as a kid without caring at all about a parent's or a teacher's evaluation?
Oh, that's such a good point.
When you connect these dots, your true underlying desires reveal themselves. The data shows you what your brain intrinsically craves.
So you find the clues in your own unprompted behavior. But how do you translate that into a life philosophy? It's a pretty big jump from realizing you like vintage watches to completely changing how you live.
Well, you don't jump. You take that knowledge into your daily life through what we could call micro-rebellions.
Micro rebellions. I like the sound of that.
You build the muscle of agency through tiny, low-stakes decisions.
Give me an example of a micro rebellion.
It starts with the absolute smallest choices. Choosing what clothes to wear today, purely because you like the texture of the fabric, not because the style is trending.
Right.
Or choosing exactly what food to eat for lunch, or how to spend your Sunday afternoon, strictly based on your own internal will. Not because a magazine recommended it,
Yeah.
and not because it will look aesthetic on social media.
This goes back to the mechanism of the brain, right? Every time you make a choice based on your genuine preference, you are physically building a neural pathway of self-trust. You are reinforcing your own internal compass.
Yes, it sounds small, but it is revolutionary. You are validating your own existence separate from the gaze of others.
That's huge.
But there is a massive roadblock people hit when they start doing this, which is the sunk cost fallacy of old dreams. We really need to talk about guilt-free evolution.
Oh, this is vital. Because what if my authentic, true dream 10 years ago was to be a touring musician? And I meant it. I put blood, sweat, and tears into it. But now, at 35, I kind of just want to own a quiet bookstore and sleep in my own bed.
Right.
Letting go of the music feels like a massive failure. Culturally, we are just bombarded with the message to never give up.
And that toxic positivity is a complete trap.
Yeah.
The text makes it clear, dreams change, and that is exactly how it should be. You are not a static entity.
Right, I'm not the same person I was at 20.
Exactly. Your biology changes, your environment changes, your values shift. Why should a dream you formulated when you were 20 dictate your life when you were 40?
Because we treat past versions of ourselves as authoritative masters rather than rough drafts.
Precisely. Holding on to a dream that you made when you were a younger, less mature version of yourself is a form of self-imprisonment.
Yeah.
You're forcing yourself to wear a coat you outgrew a decade ago just to prove a point to an invisible audience.
Ouch.
You should feel absolutely zero guilt and no sense of defeat in discarding a dream that no longer fits the current you. Dropping an outdated dream isn't quitting, it is making space for the reality of who you are right now.
That is incredibly liberating, just the sheer permission to change your mind without it being a moral failing.
It's essential.
So, bringing all of this together, what is the core takeaway of this deep dive? It's the realization that having a dream is not a civic duty.
No, it's not.
Chasing a beautifully painted, socially acceptable dream based on someone else's values makes you a supporting character in the movie of your own life.
You literally become an extra in your own existence.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? It means true fulfillment doesn't live in heavy job titles, societal applause, or outward vanity. It exists entirely inside your own internal compass. It's the quiet, radical confidence of knowing what you actually like and having the courage to build your life around it, even if society thinks your small sanctuary is entirely trivial.
And, as we look at the broader implications of this, especially regarding how the internet allows us to broadcast our lives and bypass traditional gatekeepers, it brings up a really fascinating dilemma about the future.
How so? Where are we heading?
Well, we are rapidly moving into an era where technology and artificial intelligence can instantly generate perfect, flawless content.
Right. AI is everywhere now.
AI can replicate the aesthetic of success, it can generate beautiful art, it can write compelling scripts. If anyone can generate a perfect image of success with a prompt, then the image of success becomes completely worthless.
Because there's zero scarcity. The label loses all its value because it's infinitely reproducible.
Yes. So, what is left? Perhaps the only truly unreplicable, purely human value left in the world is the raw, unedited, internal feeling of pursuing your quirky, small obsessions.
Like the person meticulously restoring those Showa-era retro goods.
Exactly. They aren't doing it for the final photo.
Yeah.
An AI could generate a perfect photo of a restored radio in 2 seconds.
Right. The photo doesn't matter.
They are doing it for the profoundly human experience of getting lost in the process. Not for the output, not to turn it into a side hustle, and certainly not for the internet's approval. The value is the friction, the flow state, the time spent.
It's about the doing, not the showing.
Right. So I leave you with this question to mull over. What would you do tomorrow if you knew absolutely no one would ever see it and no algorithm could ever reward it?
Wow, that is the ultimate test, isn't it? If the audience completely disappears, what do you naturally reach for? Maybe today is the day to take off that beautifully tailored, incredibly heavy coat that belongs to someone else. Just leave it on the rack and finally step outside in whatever actually fits. Take care of your sanctuary, and thanks for taking this deep dive with us.